Evening, everyone. I would like to call the Lindop School District 92 Board of Education meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Trainer Harrod.
Present.
Board Member Griffin.
Present.
Board Member Morris.
Present.
Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Absent.
Board Member Tanya Taylor.
Absent.
Absent. Board Member Brian Dawson.
Absent.
Present. Present.
We got at least have 4 between the two.
No, because did someone just come on? Ms. Williams-Wolford.
Brian Dawson here.
That's wonderful.
Mr. Dawson is present. Mrs. Williams-Wolford is still absent. Mrs. Tanya Taylor, Mrs. Cheryl Griffin. Present. And Mr. Woody Morris.
Present.
Aaron Hannah.
Absent.
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 Okay.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll pause for a moment of silence, please. Please put your cell phones on mute or silence. Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, are there any public comments, Dr. Jackson?
There are none at this time.
Thank you. Moving right along to the public town hall meeting. Okay.
Thank you very much. If Mr. Baranik will come up and Mr. Arndt, we will begin the presentation for the town hall meeting. And the question on the ballot will read as follows. Shall the debt service extension base under the property tax extension limitation law for Lindop School District 92, Cook County, Illinois, for payment of principal and interest on limited bonds be established at $425,000 for the 2022 levy year and all subsequent levy years, such debt service extension base to be increased each year by the lesser of 5% or the percentage increase in the consumer price index during the 12-month calendar year preceding the levy year.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jackson.
No problem.
It's all right.
You want my laptop?
Probably should be on the mic though too.
This way.
Take it off and can you walk and talk?
Yeah.
Good evening, Board of Education, community members, staff members, and administrators. First thing I want to mention here, once again, this referendum is being introduced as a debt service extension, as Dr. Jackson stated, not to exceed the $425,000 payment, which is currently established. This will allow the district, if approved, to be able to go out and issue approximately $6.5 million worth of bonds to address life safety and mechanical and capital projects that are in need here at Lindop School. I want to stress that this is a zero tax impact to the taxpayers. This is the actual question. I was able to review Cook County's election ballot that is out there. We are out there. It is on the ballot. It is posted in the main office, also posted outside the district office, and it will be posted on our website with the exact question that will be on the ballot, as Dr. Jackson read, and that was published in multiple newspapers for the community to see the actual question for the referendum. Once again, I want to stress zero tax impact. After this presentation, I will have Andy Arndt from Baird come up and show that. He is the expert in the field with showing that zero tax impact for our taxpayers. The pictures that you're going to be seeing are the main items that would be prioritized to be addressed if this referendum was to pass and the board was to issue bonds for approximately $6.5 million. The first major project that has to be done here at Lindop is the roofs. Approximately 70% of the building needs new roofs. On this picture, we have Section A and Section B. Section A is the middle school wing. The roof is approximately 22 years old, and it has some issues currently with ponding of water, some membrane pulling away from the seams. And then Section B is the elementary wing down to the pre-K. This roof is actually older and is also experiencing membrane issues, and there is some additional issues with mechanical items that are on it that are out of compliance for the standards that are currently in place, which would be addressed once the roof would be replaced. If we look at the different sections on this PowerPoint here, you'll see what we're talking about with the ponding. The reason the ponding is bad, eventually water will work to where there is a penetration, which will then eventually seep into the actual building. We have had a few leaks here and there sporadically in the junior high wing. This current year, we had 3 of them that had to be patched. And if you notice, it continues to keep ponding in various areas. The slope of the roof is actually not pitched correctly where it's not getting to the gutters. And then you will see the seams, the membrane, where the seams need to be addressed, that it's actually pulling away and raising, which is causing penetration points potentially if the water ponds and gets into those seams. If we move on to the elementary section, you will see all of the different mechanical piping and various mechanical things that have to be brought back up to standard once the new roof is there. The biggest thing is the supports that are out there. The new current supports with current trends are just way better than what we currently have. Once again, these are over 20 years old with old supports, which would have to be addressed. The membrane, if you look at it, are also pulling apart at the various seams with it. You can see the roof where it has a bunch of cracks in it. It is not supposed to look like that. The new roofs are a completely different design, way more energy efficient, and have a life expectancy of over 25 years. The next major issue that is on our life safety report is tuck pointing. This tuck pointing has been on for 2 life safety reports, pushing it to nearly 20 years old. The reason tuck pointing is very important is so that water doesn't penetrate, or if it continues to keep deteriorating, potentially you could have bricks on various chimneys potentially become compromised and may possibly become a hazard of falling and deteriorating and then falling onto the roof, causing a safety issue. These do need to be addressed. This is one of the highest priorities that we have on our life safety, and the cost for this is approximately $250,000. The next section on our life safety report that needs to be addressed is mechanical issues. Our building is I guess it varies in ages from different editions to editions. And as new standards come in, we have to continuously update to make sure that we are in legal requirements, what is expected through West 40, which is our regional office that does life safety inspections, and with the state, so that the health and safety of all our students and staff is met. So we do have some severe mechanical issues within the next 3 to 5 years that need to be addressed. One other thing that I want to point out on here is that we have our air conditioning unit, which is located out by our playground. And that is a pretty significant cost to replace, even though it's working correct now and we have it serviced with annual routine maintenance. It is approaching, close to 20 years old, 25 years old on that, and it could potentially go at any point. So it's something to keep in mind as we move forward and prioritize using our money to address these life safety issues. But that's a $300,000 estimated cost. And that's a pretty significant thing, especially with our current weather. If you didn't have air conditioning for our students with it, we probably wouldn't be having school with it. So that's something that we got to keep in mind and make sure that we have the safety and well-being of not only our students, but our staff to be able to do what they do. The next item that would have to be done here would be electrical. There are some big plans to continue pushing using renewable energy and trying to go green as the initiative within our village. And some of the things that we do have to address, though, internally before we could even move forward with those is making sure that our fire alarms are up to code, making sure that our internal clock systems are going into code, an entire school generator. We didn't have power last week for 4 days. That was a significant issue that we encountered here. And then obviously updating the electrical panel in the boiler room, which would allow us then to expand onto some of these initiatives that the Village of Broadview has brought forth. And we want to follow the lead with the village and enhance renewable energy. But in order to do that, we have to do these upgrades in order to keep pushing forward with current state of the art and the green initiative that we have. The biggest item that we not only want to address, we have to address the envelope of our school, making sure that it's safe and secure, but then we want to do something that is innovative for our students, and we would like to reimagine our Lindop library. If we look at our current state of our library, very traditional. The oak bookshelves that come into the oak tables and sit, circulation desk in the middle, very, very traditional. What we would like to do is reimagine it, create a 21st century space. We want to create learning areas for students where they feel comfortable going in there, sharing new ideas, working with teachers in different teacher zones, working in collaborating areas, really, really re-innovating this whole thing with the state-of-the-art 21st century stuff. This would be the centerpiece of Lindop School, this new innovative library. Some of these pictures are just examples of what other districts have done to try to re-innovate the space that they have. Some of the trending examples, you will see the portable, removable, retractable rooms. So if you had to create an actual classroom in there, you would be able to do that. You have flexible seating with it. You have warm, inviting colors, change in lighting with it. So all these little things is what we're trying to imagine with creating this new innovative Lindop library as a centerpiece. This would allow students the ability to work together in collaboration areas, become more hands-on, working in small groups, just making it more conducive for the students to collaborate and work together. The biggest thing is we want to shift from teacher to student center and make it warm, open, inviting. All these pictures, when we look at them, are creating a new design, new look, new innovation, just reimagining it, rebranding our library. The library is a significant cost. It's estimated to be about $1.2 million to renovate. Obviously, it wouldn't just be the administration, the Board of Education. This is something that would have to be going out for input from various community members, various subgroups to get inputs, ideas, and then all those different stakeholders would put forth the new ideas, which would come with multiple renderings that would go for a vote. And that would be what would go through with the new library that would be renovated. So if we look at all those different projects that are out there and prioritizing those items, as of right now, just doing those are 5.5 million with it. One thing that I do want to mention is that inflation is through the roof right now. Building products are very costly. The shipping is difficult to get. So with this, that price could fluctuate. We don't know if it's going to come in at that. It may come in higher. We're hoping that our architect and engineer gave the best guesstimate for addressing those different areas, but this would allow us to be able to address those main areas with the roofing, the library, the mechanical, the electrical, and then hopefully with that $6.5 million, it tightens up the envelope, creates that new innovative library, and puts that as the centerpiece of the community and puts Lindop right back in as the main attraction to Broadview. Steps we have taken to help the taxpayers. We have applied and received 2 rounds of the property tax relief grants. What that is that the district is abating money back to the taxpayers and shifting the burden from the local taxpayers to the state. So we're giving back money to the taxpayers, increasing our evidence-based funding formula, which is the state old general state aid formula that we have. It's now called evidence-based funding, which we have increased by abating the taxes back to the community. We have also negotiated vendor contracts to try to minimize those increases as inflation has really gone excelling upward with the current trends. And then obviously we have put out for all kinds of grants to try to get additional money to offset costs locally. We've done that with cafeteria grants, the solar grant, and community partnership grant. And we also just put in for a Freedom School grant that hopefully we will be approved for. And then the biggest thing that we've been able to do is we've utilized the ESSER funds. That is the COVID money that we have received. We have received 3 rounds of the COVID money. We are trying to maximize every dollar from that to really address learning loss and the needs of the students, but yet also creating a safe environment for our staff and students by addressing air quality. And then there's also a big piece in there that we're trying to do with some safety. And then we continuously look at our fund balances. Each fund that we go through, we try to maximize every dollar that we possibly have. We continuously do this. And the biggest thing is we try to maximize every dollar that we get from the taxpayers and have a balanced budget. What happens if the referendum doesn't pass? Some of the things that we would have to do over the next 2 to 5 years is prioritize our life safety projects that we have. With it, we wouldn't be able to address everything all at once and get better pricing. We would have to piece it over the next 10 to 15 years and really dissect what we were going to do summer after summer after summer and try to figure out how do we get all this work done where we can get what we would get to the end point. It would be tough with it. Is it possible? Yes, but you're not going to see the big change that you would see if this referendum passed and we were able to address these big items right away. Some of the things that we would definitely have to look at, and this is not something that the community would want to see, is, okay, how would we be able to reduce some money? And that would be reducing teaching staff potentially. Our class sizes are relatively small. We would have to look at staffing and say, could you get away with running 2 sections versus 3 sections and increase that class size from, say, 15, 16 up to 28, 29? That's something to look at that would save the district quite a bit of money. Would we look at our electives that we're trying to build so much and make these junior high kids ready for high school and transition them from high school then to college? Okay, we'd have to look at our electives and pull them back and scale them back and really concentrate maybe on 1 or 2 and not offer all the ones that we have. We may have to look at potentially cutting the all-day pre-K that is out there, something that we don't want to do. However, if you were to eliminate and not run that program, it would save some significant money with it. And then, of course, even with that, you're still piecing together your projects. It gets you a big chunk of change, but it doesn't get you to that figure to really make that significant change that is needed by issuing the potential of $6.5 million bonds. Now, remember that life safety survey showed about $11 million in work that has to be addressed in the next 10 years. Even by cutting 1.2 annually, it's still going to take some strategic planning and really coming up with a direct plan as to what's going to be addressed on that life safety survey and prioritizing the items. That is the town hall presentation. As far as Lindop's needs, at this particular time, I'm going to have Andy Arndt come up. He is our financial background expert with it to stress the non-tax impact to the taxpayers. And I would like you to have Mr. Arndt speak on it as he is the expert in the field.
And at that time as well, we will entertain questions. And so if anyone is on Zoom that has questions, please type them into your chat and we will address those as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Andy Arndt. I'm with Baird Public Finance. And we've been talking about this topic now for quite a few months with the Board of Education through finance committees and open board meetings. So this is nothing new, but I just want to give a little recap here. I'm going to skip over some of this because both Dr. Jackson and Mr. Baranek have covered it at this point. So just to kind of consolidate here, I'll focus on the items that we haven't touched on. I think one of the important things that hasn't been said at this point tonight is that currently Lindop School District cannot borrow to finance for projects without going to referendum of some kind. So through that initial discussion, we've gotten to the point of identifying a debt service extension-based referendum as the means that we're going to attempt to be able to do that. Now, another thing I want to point out is that a successful referendum does not automatically mean $6 million is deposited into the school district's bank account. There are other steps and processes that have to take place after a successful debt service extension-based referendum in order for the district to capture the money that you're hoping to capture for these projects. And so that is an entirely different process. It takes about 3 months, each individual bond issue. And so that's something that we will explore and talk about, when the time comes. But I think that's important to understand. It's been mentioned already that we're looking to do this with no tax increase. The payment target that we're looking at is $425,000. We have that illustrated here in a couple slides so that it makes sense to everybody. But really, I think one question that has come up that I'm aware of is This standard question, which has now been read at least once tonight, asks, a portion of the question asks, let me see here. Such debt service extension base to be increased each year by the lesser of 5% or the increase in the consumer price index. That is a standard legal form of a question that's put before the taxpayers. But what's important to understand is that we've all talked publicly about targeting $425,000. It's up to the current board and future boards to decide whether or not they're going to capture those increases or simply keep those payments static at $425,000. And every conversation that we've had up to this point is to keep that payment static. Now, it can change at some point in the future, but I think it's been said enough that that's our goal, and that's our hope, is to keep that payment flat without increases. And again, the illustration will show that. We've pretty much covered this slide. This is something we talked about previously, that there was a lot of steps to get here, a lot of hoops to jump through in order to just get that ballot on the question. And Scott pointed out that it is, in fact, at the county level on the ballot. So it'll be ready next week when the voters go to the booths. So on this page, we've talked about this at least previously at a board meeting. The teal section of that pie chart represents the portion of District 92's levy that is reserved for bond payments. Right now, that's less than 7% of the overall levy of the school district. If we continue to extend that after a successful referendum, it will still remain approximately 6 to 7% of the overall levy for the school district, which is a relatively small portion. To put that in meaningful dollars and cents, the owner of a $100,000 home, in order to pay their tax bill and pay that teal portion of that pie chart, would pay approximately $6 per month in their tax bill each year to accommodate that. So as Scott talks about all of those needs that total $5.5 million or more, what he's asking for, in a question like this, is he's saying, can we continue to ask that $100,000 home, fair market value, for that $6 per month in order to take care of the tuck pointing, the roofs, the library renovation, and all of those things that he covered in his portion of the presentation. For a $200,000 home, it comes out to about $17 a month. And again, both of those assume that that taxpayer gets the homeowner's exemption, which is pretty standard for anybody that's going to be sending children to school. It's anybody that is living in that home as their primary residence. I pointed out at the beginning that currently your district cannot borrow without going to referendum. You're right there smack dab in the middle. Your current debt service extension base is $0. Now, what we wanted to look at is how does that compare to neighboring elementary districts, pretty much in the immediate area, not venturing out too far. And you can see that it's pretty wide ranging. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $250,000 up to over $3 million annually is what those districts can have a bond payment to tackle projects. So for example, if Bellwood 88 had no other bond issues outstanding, they could tackle your project list and pay it off in 2 years. And so there is definitely some unfairness going on here with the way that these were established. But unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And so what we're trying to do is bring you up to par or closer to par with your neighboring districts. To put this in perspective, if you were to succeed in passing the referendum, you would be almost identical to Comarec 94, which is the gold bar third from the right. So you would by no means be at the top of the list, but it would definitely pull you up from the bottom as far as your capabilities for future needs. So what would happen also is in the future, it would be up to the school board at the time to decide whether or not to capture additional dollars if needed for projects by tapping into this payment limit that you would have access to. Currently, that limit is $0. So you cannot extend a levy for non-referendum bonds. I think most of this has been covered. There's just some key takeaways that are in here, and this will be available online afterward. So if anybody on Zoom wants to revisit this, it should be out there available to them and to the board as well. But one of the main things is that when is this vote taking place? It's next Tuesday. It is 1 week from today. It's coming up quick. And so we're hoping that, if you haven't shared the information with neighbors, you haven't talked to your neighbors about it, please do, and get those conversations going because time is of the essence. Let's see. I think Scott covered what would happen if the referendum didn't pass. And there's a lot of financial impacts, obviously, that would change the way that he would budget for projects and tackling those things over the next few years. Another opportunity is that in November, you would potentially, as a board, be able to decide to go down this road again and try to ask the taxpayers a very similar question in hopes of trying to get to the point of being able to tackle these projects. Because every year that these projects don't take place, the cost of those projects typically escalates over time. So whatever's estimated this year at 5.5 million or 6 million, next year might be 6.5 or 7. So that is time playing against you as well. I think it's been said several times at this point that the goal here is not to increase taxes, but to simply continue to be able to ask for the same bond payment over the next 20 years, which is the legal maximum that you can borrow against. And if there were a successful referendum, the gray bar would be the last remaining payment from the last referendum that Lindop 92 tackled, which was exactly 20 years ago. In November of 2002 was the last time that the school district asked the taxpayers a question similar to the one that you'll be asking next week. But if that question were to pass and bonds were sold, this is what the payments would look like: $425,000 annually for up to 20 years to capture the money needed to tackle those capital projects. And I believe that is all that I've prepared. So Scott and I are available for questions if anybody has any.
Community also is right. Any board members have any questions? I know that we've been through this painstakingly. So I think that we are probably okay. But at this time, our community, are there any questions in the community at all at this town hall meeting? If there's any questions that you all have, I know we don't, you didn't fill out anything, but you have the opportunity now to ask a question if you need to, if you'd like. Okay.
I would like to state that if there are no questions, I would like to thank the two of you because you have been very thorough in explaining a lot of issues, even myself, that I had with questions about it, and thank you.
There are no Zoom participants other than board members.
Well, if any members of the public have any questions, feel free to pass them my way. I'm happy to tackle them.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Moving on to Foia request. And I don't think there are any.
There are none.
Wonderful. Upcoming events and correspondence.
There, no.
And no events either, all right?
All right.
Okay. Consent agenda. This is one time we're going to have a consent agenda. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Cheryl Griffin. I make a motion that the board approve the Lindop District 92 payroll for May 18th, 2022 through June 21st, 2022 in the amount of $1,126,107.47. Accounts payable for May 18th, 2022 through June 21st, 2022 in the amount of $359,290.73. The activity account reconciliation for June 2022, the Press Plus Issue 109 approval and adaptation of 3-70 succession of authority, 5-110 recognition of service, 5-240 achievement and awards. Suspension, 5-70 religious holidays, 6-140, education of homeless children. 6-330, achievement and awards. 6-70, teaching about religion. 7-70, resource conservation. 5-80, court duty. 6-80, teaching about controversial issues. 7-15, Student and Family Privacy Acts. 7-270, administering medicines to students. 7-285, anaphylaxis prevention, response, and management program 5-year review as presented. And 6-290, homework with district edits.
And a second, please.
I second.
Any questions, comments? There are none. Roll call.
Board Member Joyner Harret,
Yay.
Board Member Griffin,
Yay.
Board Member Williams-Wolford,
Yay.
Board Member Taylor, absent, Board Member Morris,
Yay.
Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yay.
Motion carries. Moving on to old business. Need a recommendation to approve the attendance for Dr. Jackson at Grand Canyon University.
Board Member Hannah, I make a motion that the board approve the attendance for Superintendent Dr. Janice Jackson at the Grand Canyon University administer fly-in partnership event in Phoenix, Arizona from July 20th through and including July 22nd at no cost to the district.
On a second, please.
Second.
Okay, Dr.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Yes. And so this came up during another meeting. It was supposed to travel. I was supposed to travel in April, but did not. And so this is just replacing the one that I was going to attend. And this is through our partnership with Grand Canyon University. And just to see what else they have to offer. Currently, we do have 2 teachers. We talk about growing our own. And so they are in this dual program. So we will have in about 18 months, 1 regular ed teacher and dual regular ed and special education. So that's exciting.
Any questions, comments? There are none. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joyner Harret,
Yay.
Board Member Griffin,
Yay.
Board Member Hannah,
Yay.
Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Morris,
Yay.
Board Member Taylor, absent, Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. Moving on to new business. I need a recommendation to approve budget.
All right, Board Member Hannah, I make a motion that the board approve the tentative budget for Foia FY 2023.
And a second.
Cheryl,
Board Member.
Okay.
Cheryl Griffin, I second.
Okay, Mr. Baranik.
Good evening, Board of Education, administrators, staff, and community members. This is a very, very brief presentation on the tentative budget for FY 23. I have the actuals as of June 1. It's very early in the process, so I wanted to make sure that I captured all of the fund balances that we currently have. Going through the revenue side, I'll start with that one first. I do have in there with CPI sitting at 7% from last year with it. I do have an increase of approximately 4.9% for taxes on it, which the school district is entitled to levy for. Doesn't mean that we are going to get it. Like I said, I'm not going to levy anything over 5% because that is what Cook County has with a tax cap community and also tax cap within that. That's the law. So I can't go over it unless I have a public hearing and ask for more. But the problem that we have here is if you don't levy for something close to that, your base, you'll never be able to recapture that base. So I wanted to make sure that I have it captured in there with it. I do have where it reflects the property tax relief grant, where it will be abated back to the community. And then I also bumped up our evidence-based funding formula for the state revenue on it. Some of the things that are difficult to estimate currently is corporate property replacement tax. That's something that the current trend that was out there for the last 2 years has been way out of whack, meaning last year they predicted 225,000 for revenue for the district. It came in at 650,000, significantly higher than what the estimate is. So even though the estimate is this, it came in high. I didn't go too high with that, but I know it's going to be higher than what was budgeted. So that's an increase in our revenue. I also have where I do believe that with the increase in revenue on this, I tried to get way more accurate with our snapshot of our revenue. When I went back and looked at trends in it, I was off on it. So I wanted to make sure that our property taxes actually reflect what our first installment and second installment would be based off of collection rates, and then also based off of what levy amounts that we could actually increase with it to capture every dollar possible with it. Some of the things that we do have to be mindful with this, and I want to just speak about this in public, is that Cook County is going to delay the release of tax dollars to probably January. So we probably will not see any tax dollars for the second half of our levy from 2021 till January. So we have to make sure that we have enough fund balance in each particular fund to be able to meet our payments on a month-by-month basis. I'm working with the township treasurer and doing a cash flow analysis on this. I think the only fund that we may potentially have some issues with that we may have to address down the road would be our operations and maintenance fund. However, I do have in the budget, we have evidence-based funding payments going towards it to be able to keep us afloat until January, until we get our taxes. So I have 2 payments set aside. Our average payment for evidence-based funding is approximately $70,000. So I have 2 payments going, which would be 140 to keep us afloat until we start receiving those property taxes out there. As we discussed during our town hall meeting, we have our last bond payment. We should be okay on that one because our payment is in January. So if we get our taxes in January, we will not have to worry about the bond payment. So with that being said, our revenue, we should be okay with it. On the expenditure side, I went through our collective bargaining agreements and put in the placeholders for the increase for our teachers, our support staffs as they are laid out. The teachers have a 3.25% raise this year. I also took into account teachers who have resigned, put placeholders in so that the salary portion on the expenditure side is accurately reflected. And then, of course, I have placeholders for our benefits. Remember, salary and benefits account for approximately 68 to 70% of our expenses for it. So with that being said, I have every teacher with what I believe their projected salary would be with anyone who is hired new, either coming in at the bachelor level or at the master's level. I put it for master's level because we're always looking to try to get highly qualified candidates with a master's degree. So I figured, let me get the most, accurate gauge as far as what could be our highest expense with it. And then also too, I also put whatever the highest insurance would be just as our highest expense that would be out there with it. Some of the things that I carried over from the previous budget is we do have some CARES money that is still out there. I would like to get new security cameras, which is a big portion of the CARES dollars. And then also try to get the multifunctional school buses. That was a big portion of it so that our sports teams, our clubs on the weekends could have access to these instead of outsourcing it to a First Student or utilizing Windy City with it. So that would create where we would have our own access to transport our 7th and 8th grade teams on our 2 buses to the away games. Some of the issues that we face with the shortage of bus drivers is our kids are late to the games because it's hard to get the first student buses here. And it's not that they don't have the buses, it's their short staff and they're doing their regular routes first, and then they come to us after they do their regular routes with it. So this could potentially eliminate any time issues getting to those away games, and it gives the district flexibility on it. The one thing that I want to note then through this is that after running through each line item, going through all of the different administrator budgets and different areas within it, there is a estimated surplus of this year of approximately, I believe it was $65,000 on it. So I tried to create that balanced budget with it. The biggest piece here is I did bump up the revenue because I think that we're going to have some additional revenue come in. And like you said, with this, so the tentative budget, like you said, a surplus of $65,000, trying to go through line by line with it. I think it's a pretty good, accurate snapshot with this, with the information that is readily available to this particular point, available to make the estimates. Is there any questions that I could potentially answer in regards to the tentative budget?
I just want to ask, what's making them delay the distribution of money this year? I know that our fund balance gives us the capacity to do it, but many districts are going to struggle. What makes them move it back? What is it?
They're doing some sort of reassessment calculation currently on all the values of the properties on it. And because the appeals process was delayed on it, it's delayed with going through and reviewing everything and then coming up with current figures, which then delays the distribution of it. This is going to be a pretty big problem for districts that do not have large fund balances. And they've already been asked to discuss what they could do with short-term borrowing just to get them through until the taxes come in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from anybody? Okay, there are none. Thank you, Mr. Baranik. That was a super fast one. Thank you so much. Okay. Need a roll call.
Yes. Board Member Joyner Harris.
Yay.
Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor. Absent. Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. Need a motion to approve the continuation for Delta T.
I make a motion that the board approve the continuation of services from Delta T FY 2023 rates as presented.
And a second, please.
Second.
Mr. Baranik, you're up again.
Good evening, once again, board members, community members, administrators, and staff. Delta T we have utilized for the past 3 school years out there. It gives us another option to be able to get a certified staff member into the building to help substitute. As we've mentioned before, there is a shortage of substitutes out there. The pool is very, very low and it is hard to get it. This would just give the district flexibility with utilizing Delta T as needed. The rates, however, did go up. The average daily substitute rate is up $7.50 from the previous year. The difference between last year's to this year's for the daily rate is approximately $52.50. We do utilize them from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3:30, and they get a 30-minute lunch. That's how it comes up with it. So it's about $52.50 increase with it, but this does give the district another avenue to get a certified sub in the classroom to assist with the day-to-day stuff. I know Mr. Kenobi could probably speak to it with getting the subs and making sure that we have staff in place on a weekly basis, it gets tough on the day-to-days. And this just gives us the flexibility to utilize them. And I would ask the board to please approve to continue utilizing this as an as-needs basis with Delta T.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Board Member Williams-Wolford,
Yay.
Board Member Morris,
Yay.
Board Member Dawson,
Yay.
Board Member Hannah,
Yeah.
Board Member Griffin,
Yay.
Board Member Joyner Harret.
Yay. Motion
Tanya
carried.
Taylor, absent.
Absent. Motion carries. You might as well stay up here, Mr. Baranik. Discussion on natural gas. Or either put a chair by the podium.
All right, so good evening again, board, community members, staff members, and administrators. I just want to bring this to the board's attention. With it, both our natural gas and electric contracts are up in June, at the end of June. However, the only problem, as I want to show you on this chart, is that we are at unprecedented highs for both of them. This one currently up here is our electric on it, but the gas is basically the exact same chart with the line going up. I have spoken with our rep for both of them, and they both think that there's going to be a slight dip in the fall. That's what they're projecting on it. And this is going to be very tricky to try to get this to somewhere in the middle from the high to where we're currently at. They do not see the gas prices and the electric prices going down to what they currently were at, trending a few years ago. They don't see that rebounding to what they were at unprecedented lows. So this is something that we have to look at very closely. We want to try to get something locked in prior to the winter months. We do not want to go in with a flexible rate with it. That's what's going to happen after June 30th. We're just going to have to take whatever the current month's rate is until we can try to find that midpoint and be able to lock in with it. I've also talked with both of them, both sides of it, with the experts. And I said, okay, so this is going to impact the district with how much, dollars and cents. So on the electric side, if we can get in at the place that they're saying, it would be an increase of about 11 to 12,000 annually with it compared to where we're currently paying. On the gas side, a little bit less because we don't pay as much on that one. However, they still showed somewhere between a $6,000 to $8,000 increase annually. So all in both, it would be a $20,000 increase with it. And like I said, this is going to have to be watched very closely to try to be able to lock in prior to the winter. This will be something that will be coming back to the board within probably monthly moving forward, with a recommendation to lock rates in once we see a lull, if the experts, what they're trending and predicting happen with it. So this will be coming back. Is there any questions from the board members in regards to just this update with where
I have
we're
a
at
question.
currently?
I have a question. Is it okay, Madam President?
Yep.
So if we do not, if what they're predicting does not happen and we end up with what the current rate is, how much will that increase our what we would pay this upcoming school year?
Well, it all depends on how long you want to extend out your contract. You could do a 1 year, a 2 year, a 3 year. The longer you go out, the less it costs. However, if it rebounds within a year, you could potentially see savings and then lock in a year later and get a 3-year extension on that. So it really depends on what the district is willing to say. This would be the highest, I guess, that we would be willing to pay? We need to lock in and just bite the bullet, or do we take the projection that I've gotten from our reps and hope that we can get that lull and then come back to the board with a 1, a 2, or a 3-year contract? Or either way, I'm going to bring back to the board, even if there is no low, I'm going to have to come back to the board either way prior to winter and lock this in to make sure that we do not go through some crazy cycle where it doubles. So either way, there's going to be an option for a 1-year, a 2-year, and a 3-year to be able to kind of leverage this so that we wouldn't get hit with a huge thing. Yes, it may be higher or it may be lower. It's just, we're trying to see where it's going to come in with it. But this is something that will be locked in prior to the winter months. I hope that answers your question, Ms. Williams-Wolford.
It does. Thank you. So I'm sorry, I guess it didn't, in a sense, like currently right now what they're projecting, because you said that if we get it down, it'll be about $20,000 increase. But if we don't, will that be like a $60,000 increase you're saying maybe?
I don't think it would be that high. It might be closer to 30 to 40, not double it if you did both the electric and gas, if there's no decline. It is a very volatile, market currently. And we're just hoping that once things kind of rebound here, they keep blaming everything, like you said, on the war with Ukraine and Russia as a big driver of it. If that can somehow kind of settle down a little bit and hit the low before the winter, that's all we can really hope for on it. Like you said, I'm going to be bringing this back to the board probably on a monthly basis to make sure to see where we're at, to try to minimize the top, if you'll say, where we don't want to go over the threshold. And then hopefully we can lock in somewhere in the middle there where the peak is and then where the valley is on the bottom where it just started to spike. Like I said, I know it's just something that we got to watch for. I can't give an exact dollar or cent figure right now. I can work it through the reps and say, if we lock in at this, what would be our average? And I can bring that back to the next board meeting with it.
Any more questions? Thank you, Mr. Baranik.
Thank you.
Discussion on village banners. Don't go too far, Mr. Baranik.
Okay, so we received an email from the village to see if the board would be willing to sponsor a banner on Roosevelt Road highlighting Lindop School. There is different categories as to how many banners you would want to have out there. This was just something that I think the board needs to make a decision on as far as would this be a good PR thing to advertise up and down Roosevelt Road of Lindop School. We have done a lot of advertising with the village, with the website. You did approve having a video out there to highlight Lindop School. This would just be an extension to have then the banner on Roosevelt Road for an additional cost with it. The different levels, they range depending on what you want it. Dr. Jackson, were you 1,500 to 3,500 or something like that?
Yes.
So I don't know if the board is willing to kind of come to a consensus to.
What is the banner for? Is it for the referendum?
No, it would just be to identify that Lindop School is the school within the community up and down, basically flying Lindop School and the tiger with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like promoting the different key centerpieces within the village of Broadview.
I like that better than the referendum idea. I thought it was for the referendum. I think that sounds more feasible, or at least, yeah. But anyway, tell us more. Is there anything more?
No.
What would it say?
What is the length of time? This is board member Dawson. Do we buy it and that's for a year? Usually when you buy like an advertisement, they'll say, okay, and you get 6 months, a year, or would it stay up? How long are the banners up?
I don't think we have that information now, but they are looking at least yearly, and that is only because of the wear and tear that might happen with it. But we can find out the other information.
It sounds good. And like people who are touring the community to buy a house or maybe even riding through, you know, they'll get to know that Lindop does exist, you know, because if you're just going down Roosevelt Road and you really don't know the community, seeing the banner would kind of help people, you know, put us out there a little bit more.
You'll come back more with the recommended prices or
Absolutely.
about where, I don't know, just
And
more
where it is,
information
we'll
so
have
we
some more
can,
information.
pardon?
Yes, so we can have some more information and we'll bring it back. And
Thank you.
hopefully we may be able to have some for the Friday report, but absolutely before the next meeting.
Wonderful. Any more questions from anyone?
Not a question, more of a statement. Personally, in light of everything that's going on with possible finances, and to Penny's point, like say if someone's thinking of buying a home here, generally they pull up schools prior to even looking in the area. So they're pulling that up on the internet. I don't know if this would be considered as a soft item with everything else that we have that we're trying to manage. That was just my opinion.
No,
So what does that mean?
Yeah,
What do you mean by that? I mean, tell me the direction you're going out. Maybe I missed something.
Like maybe it's, and like she was saying, this is like possibly a yearly thing. I would personally be looking at more budget items rather than
Something extra.
right at this point with
Yeah.
everything that's going on.
To me, I'll be honest with you, I can't see that writing. I saw it a little bit on the thing, but I can't see it right now. But I do understand
Right.
that comment because we are asking for this referendum. And I do understand that, Ms. Griffin. So we'll just probably get more information.
Right.
And what made you all decide? Is there a reason why? Just to be able to, what made you all want to maybe tell the board?
Absolutely. And then also, and then Scott, you can go ahead, but we also wanted to make sure that we're bringing extra money. And as Mrs. Wolfer mentioned, that people do when they're moving, they want to know what school district will be attended. I don't think that Lindop is actually on a lot of indicated rightfully on a lot of the homes, because a lot of the families say they got information from their real estate brokers or whatever, but each student that we have in is another $21,000. And so it could impact us positively by having that there also, so people can see it and recognize it.
My thought was the exposure. Roosevelt Road is a very busy road that a lot of people travel through. And sometimes you're like, oh, wow, I don't know what school would be within the boundaries of it. And like you said, you would get that exposure highlighting Lindop School. And sometimes all it takes is just that visual. And then if they look and say, okay, this looks like a clean, up and coming neighborhood, maybe I'll look and see, okay, what are the home values? Can I afford to get in there? What is the school like? And at least this way, it gives the exposure that, hey, it's Lindop School. They might type in on a Google search and check it, and then be able to check the website and look at it. So that was my thought.
One thing I think of is that there's 3 schools.
Right.
And down Roosevelt
is
Road.
divider.
You really got to have some clarity of the dividing line because of that reason. Go to Cermak, you got North River. I just meant there down Roosevelt Road. Ugh. I don't know. Those are kinds of think about.
I don't know about anybody else, but at the Juneteenth, there were a couple of families that stopped there and said that they were like 3 blocks away from Lindop. They weren't aware of where the boundary was for the different schools.
And I'm not sure that's going to make a difference, that banner, but then again, I know it's giving us publicity. These are just thoughts.
Right.
These are just thoughts. But, you know.
Yeah, it's worth looking into.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, comments? Okay. Recommendation to approve the May 17th open session meeting.
Cheryl Griffin, I make a motion that the board approve the May 17th, 2022 open session meeting minutes as presented.
And a second.
I second.
Any revisions? Roll call, please.
Board Member Joyner Harris.
Yay.
Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor, absent. Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Abstain.
Motion carries. Need somebody to approve the closed session, please?
I make the motion that the board approve the May 17th, 2022 closed session meeting minutes as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Any revisions, corrections? There are none. Roll call, please.
Board Member Williams-Wolford. Board Member-
Abstain. Abstain.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Joyner Harris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor, absent.
Motion carries. Moving right along. Need a recommendation to approve attendance at the National Black Child Development Institute in Washington, D.C. for Ms. Williams-Wolford. I'll make the motion.
Oh.
I make a motion that the board approve attendance at the National Black Child Development Institute Conference to be held in Washington, D.C., October 7th through and including October 10th for Ms. Williams-Wolford, including registration, hotel, and transportation as presented. Need a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I attended this conference before post-COVID, and it's a conference that specifically speaks to Black children. And the presentations are typically amazing. I reported back to the board when I went, I want to say it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken, put it back to the board. All information is sponsored by Walmart, Kellogg is in there, a bunch of big heavy hitters that sponsors this conference, and is generally an amazing event. So I would like the board's support and to allow me to go again, and definitely, as always, we'll definitely report back to the board whatever workshops I attend and share information.
And Penny, you were doing this instead of which conference?
Instead of CUBE.
So in other words, she is not gonna go to CUBE. She wants to go to this instead. So just to mention.
Well, and I think I traded off last time CUBE for this. September is a very busy time of the school year. It's really hard for me to get away. And this is a conference that I'm really passionate about that I've attended for many years as well.
Just out of curiosity, do we know what the hotel expense or anything like that is?
I don't think.
The only reason
I don't know what that is right now. And the reason why I'm bringing it to the board for approval, because typically they limit how many people are in the, well, you know, they only have so many hotel rooms and they sell out like very quickly. And to save on transportation costs and all that, I want to be in the main hotel. So that way I don't have to taxi back and forth, you know, to the event. And so that way, as soon as they open it up, we can register me and everything. And I will share, I'll have, well, of course, Dr. Jackson will be the one booking it, but I'll have her to put that in her report as soon as the information is available.
I do understand, because I know that most of the time we have details, you know. The board feel good about passing it without having it. Okay, we know it's gonna be not too extravagant, and we know that it's probably something will be utilized well. We support each other.
Yeah, you want to put it up for vote? That's fine.
We already did.
Oh, we did? Cool.
I think you did a motion, so need a roll call, please.
Ready? Okay. Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Joyner Harris.
Yay.
Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Williams-Wolford.
I abstain. I don't think I can vote on it.
And the motion fails. If it carries, it carries, it carries.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Need a recommendation to approve the WAZED conference for Dr. Jackson, please.
Yes, and so this is very exciting. I did go maybe about 3 years ago down to Arizona, but this time
Let's look at the approval first.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Who's gonna do the recommendation?
It's not a motion.
Is it a motion?
Yeah, there's
Yes.
no
It's
motion
supposed to be,
on
it's just
here.
not dark.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just, go ahead. Oh, recommended to approve. I need a recommendation I would like to approve the attendance for Dr. Jackson at the WAZD 2022 Pathway Conference designation recognition by Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple at the Omni Scottsdale Resort at Montelucia, including lodging, travel, and conference fee November 1st and include November 4th at no cost to the district.
Cheryl Griffin, I second.
Dr. Jackson.
Yes, thank you. And so I went to this conference probably about 3 years ago, but it was just to attend because we had just become clients with WAZD. And now this time, working really, really hard and pushing WAZD in our STEM program. And so we are now being noticed and recognized as a pathfinder for WAZD, which is one of their higher designations that they have. And so this would be an honor for Lindop School District. And I would be happy if you guys would approve the motion.
Okay, any additional questions, comments? Okay, there are none. Roll call, please.
Board Member Dawson. Board Member Dawson.
Go right ahead.
Board Member Joyner Harret.
Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor is absent. Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. I need a recommendation to approve the district summer hours 8 to 3 p.m. And a second, please. Already is a recommended motion.
Cheryl Griffin, I second.
Okay,
Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay.
Something like that.
Mhm.
I think I did. So
Yeah, you did.
tell us about how that's going to happen.
And so the hours would be from 8 until 3. The secretaries normally leave at 3 o'clock anyway, so it wouldn't really give them too much of a difference, but for admin it would. The office is typically closed at 3 o'clock. That's what has been done for the last 3 years. And anyone who does not stay that long, they would use their vacation time.
So they use their vacation
They would
time.
use vacation time, yes.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Dawson. Absent.
Yay. Yay.
Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Okay, Board Member Griffin.
Yay.
Board Member Joyner Harret.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor.
Absent.
Absent. And Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yay.
Motion carries. Okay. Moving, let me get my book out. I got a board president report. No. You know what? It is, we are moving along really
I know.
nicely. All I'll say is get out there and vote, guys. Get out there and vote for that referendum. Those that,
I voted today.
that's it. I need to still vote though,
Yeah,
for
we'll
those
vote.
who haven't, like me.
Right.
And that is my board president's report. Moving right along to superintendent report.
Yes, and so we have some good things happening. The first one we all had a chance to attend was the graduation on May 20th. It was amazing. So much good feedback coming back from the community with just how nicely it was done here at Lindop. We had become very used to or wanted that the tent, but when we came in here due to the inclement weather, and thank goodness that it was, because we got to come in and see exactly how beautiful Lindop could just be. So it was a wonderful ceremony, and thank you all so much for your support.
You all did an excellent job. It was something to be proud of.
Next, district finances, E-rate priority 2 funds received. We received $58,909.25. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you, Josh.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Olescu.
Yes. And that concludes my report.
Right. Okay. Almost as short as mine. Moving right along to committee reports. Personnel and Finance Committees did not meet and both meetings are to be determined. Moving on to PACE Governing Board meeting, Mr. Dawson or Mr. Morris, you have an update from the Wednesday, May 18th meeting?
Yes, we just had a meeting last week. Things went well. Obviously, they're into the summer months as well. There's a new president elected. I stepped down. It's Daryl Richardson from Hillside, really good person. I think it's going to keep leading PACE in the right direction, but no major issues to report as yet.
Thank you. Anything for closed session, Mr. Dawson, or no?
Not tonight, no.
Okay, wonderful. Safety SEL, that was Thursday, June 7th. That was Mr. Morris and Mr. Hannah. Any updates at all?
Nothing really. We discussed with the chief and the chief of police, well, the deputy chief, in regards to the safety of our school. If something was a school shooting was to happen here, what we would do and the initiatives that they want to do so that they can learn the building for all the first responders of Broadview. I don't know if Mr. Kenobi, if you want to talk a little bit about it.
Just a little bit too.
Good evening, Board of Education. So it was our annual meeting that is part of the compliance with the police and fire department, and we submit our meeting notes to West 40 Regional Office of Education. The building did schedule. We had to reschedule because of the power outage last week, but we rescheduled building walkthroughs with police and fire department for next week, and it's for their new officers to take a tour of the building. So police and fire department will take tours at 5 a.m. at 9 a.m. And they want to do that because they want all the shifts for the different officers, the midnight shifts, things like that, to be for those officers to actually see the building and walk through it. So those are scheduled for next week. And then another topic for discussion, and that's going to go through Board Member Hannah and Board Member Morris, is for over the summer if they could do a practice run with their officers in the building and stage almost like a active shooter drill with nobody here, but do a scenario based so they can get some of that training. So those were some of the topics that we brought up from the safety and wellness.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Policy Committee meeting, that's Mr. Dawson and Ms. Williams-Wilson, the virtual team.
Right. You know, actually, we didn't have a meeting the first Wednesday of the month as we usually did because there just weren't any policies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to backtrack just a second. There's one thing I needed to mention for PACE. And that is, it wasn't voted on, but just brought up as an idea. And that's why I didn't report it at first. It was thrown out whether or not the districts usually get refunded monies at, that is left over. And the executive director brought up the idea of keeping a percentage, a small percentage, maybe like a 5 or a 10% percentage of monies that are usually refunded back to the individual districts as kind of like a rainy day fund for PACE. Like if there's a roof issue that needs to be quickly addressed, or if there is a water main break or something like that, PACE usually doesn't have, a fund balance the way we do. And so the idea would be that everyone would have, their percentage, let's say 5% of their refund put into account, and each individual district would, kind of have their own monies there. And if there was an issue that needed to come up, that way PACE could then come out to the board and say, well, here's an issue. May we use part of this money from our rainy day fund to address, the higher substitute teacher cost, or this operational issue, or, that or the like. So that was thrown out. Nothing was voted on, but it was a conversation that we had. And I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation.
That has to be voted on by the districts.
Right,
anyway.
I was gonna say, is that gonna be voted on by us?
Districts.
Yes, but that's until they get us something concrete where I can bring it back to the board and say, they want 5% for this, et cetera. If this was kind of like let's call it a preliminary conversation. It was the first conversation. So we don't have any paperwork. There's nothing to vote on for us yet. But when we do, I just kind of wanted to let y'all know this is something that was talked about. There's not an up or down vote. This is just something that was a conversation. The business manager and executive director will be giving us more where we can bring it back to our individual districts and say, this is our proposal.
Thank you. We don't have to get upset yet. Keep on going. Policy, it's getting late. Policy, go right ahead.
So there's nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. There's no no technology this month. Strategic planning, referendum. I think we covered that. The two leads, right?
That's correct.
All right. Public comments. You know what? We out there. We are doing ourselves. Are there any public comments at all, Dr. Jackson? Nope. There are none. Okay, I need a motion to go into executive session at 6:51 p.m. Woo.
Brian Dawson, I move that the board go into closed session under 5 Illinois CS statute. Compensatory ILCS 122 C14 9 and 10 to discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, or performance of specific employees of the public body, evidence or testimony presented in open hearing or in closed hearing where specifically authorized by law, student disciplinary cases, the placement of an individual students in special education programs and other matters relating to individual students, and collective negotiation matters between the public body and its employees or the representatives at 6:52 p.m.
I second Board Member Hannah.
And a roll call, please. Yay.
Yay. Board Member Hannah.
Yeah.
Board Member Dawson.
Yay.
Board Member Morris.
Yay.
Board Member Taylor, absent. Board Member Williams-Wolford.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for everyone.